Hello and welcome everybody today to this presentation on the Blueprint for Digital Forensics by Telefonica Tech. I'm going to start by putting this slide up here, just give you a bit of time to digest it. What it actually says is that it's estimated that more than 90% of crime is estimated to have a digital element within that crime. So you can see by where we are today, the amount of digital data that's being created with mobile phones, laptops, tablets, drones, cameras, etc., that the digital element to crime is just increasing exponentially. So my name is Wilkinson. I'm an account technologist at Telefonica Tech. I'm focused on the public sector within the UK and Ireland, and I'm joined today by Anthony from Leicestershire Police. So I've spent the last 5 years or so really living and breathing policing in the UK and understanding how technology is needed to kind of drive the outcomes and solve crimes quicker. So although I spent that time working in that sector, I'm by no means the expert. I'm really pleased to have Anthony Jones here from Leicestershire Police. Anthony, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yes, good evening everybody. I'm Anthony Jones. I'm a detective from Leicestershire Police in the United Kingdom. We're a law enforcement agency based in the UK. We're one of 43 police forces in the United Kingdom. And my specialism is digital forensics and cybercrime investigations. So I've been in the police 16 years, done a variety of different roles, but the last 5 years I've specialised in digital investigations and particularly cybercrime investigations. And recently I'm in a full-time role at the moment, working on our digital forensics transformation project. And I'm here today to talk with Will today and share the experience of our project and what that's going to bring our organisation and policing in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Anthony. So what we'll go through today is we'll first cover the process. So Anthony will take you through a digital forensics process. So what the officers in charge have to go through, what the DFU, the digital forensics unit users have to go through to collect data from digital devices. So Anthony will take you through that in some detail, and that will start to frame the challenges that policing sector are facing, not just in the UK, but globally for sure. What we've been working on with Anthony and the Leicestershire team over the last 4 or 5 years is a solution to really transform digital forensics. So what we believe we've developed that into now is actually a blueprint for digital forensics that we can take to further UK police forces and other law enforcement agencies, again, internationally and globally. And then we'll wrap up with what's next. So what's coming down the line for digital forensics? What are the new challenges that we're seeing with the data creation and the proliferation of data that's leading into the next sort of section of transformation for digital forensics? So Anthony, I'll pass over to you and build out this slide.
Okay, so in modern policing, as we saw on the first slide, over 90% of our investigations have a digital element to them. Now, when I started my policing career 16 years ago, the average size of a mobile phone was minute. I think 4 gigabytes was the biggest size. The majority of people still had pretty dumb phones at the time. The Nokias with the kind of texting with multiple numbers, etc., if anybody can remember those days. So as I've gone through my policing career, and as we've all witnessed, the absolute growth and eruption of data, and as we see there, we've got challenges that just grow every year by year. Every year the data gets bigger, more vast quantities of data, different sources, whether it be conventional mobile phones that we need to acquire data from, laptops, cloud data. It's just growing and erupting year on year. So for us, as we operate at the moment, we have a digital forensics unit within our organisation. So each police force in the United Kingdom has a digital forensics capability. And what our role is to extract data from all the different variety of different data sources that we have. So conventionally, what we used to see was suspects and criminals were storing data on laptops, computers, Windows, predominantly Windows-based devices. But over time, we've actually seen a massive surge in mobile devices taking over what was conventional forensics, in computers. So we've got computers, laptops, CCTV, audio-visual material. That's always been there in policing investigations. CCTV's erupted and got better quality. We're seeing 4K regularly within CCTV systems. We're seeing now CCTV system record even longer periods of time. So we're now, as part of our investigations, and particularly the major crime investigations, we're now seeing what is several weeks of CCTV footage that we need to review and essentially find a needle in a haystack. When we're talking about super high definition audio-visual footage, we're talking about quite large data sizes as well. So the challenge we have at the moment is that ingestion of data into our investigations just takes time. So we set on a journey about 4 years ago now to look at the way we could modernise our investigations and really conquer that challenge of what is essentially quite a slow, manual, labour-intensive process. So if we go to that slide, Will. So once we've essentially extracted or sucked all of that data out of our digital devices in our investigation, we move on to the analysis phase. And this has traditionally been quite a labour-intensive, human-centric part of the process. And at the moment, we're doing a lot of manual human beings clicking buttons, which isn't really value add. So as we'll talk about later in this presentation, we really wanted to get away from that human being doing really mundane, non-value add functions in our process. So we wanted to bring in some automation. What we also realised as well is our current business operation is quite siloed, so systems are not able to talk to systems. So we really wanted to, on the journey with Telefonica, kind of conquer this and deliver what we are referring to as a digital forensics platform, where systems are interconnected and able to talk to other systems, and that data is essentially there in that platform. Mm-hmm. So at the end of this, ultimately what we want as investigators and as a law enforcement agency is we want the ability for that evidence to be presented in our criminal justice system, so in front of the courts and the various different, basically the process. So what we need is we need that data that we get out in the first part of the process, the ingestion, to be easily understandable by our investigators. So it needs to be accessible. It needs to be able to be easily understood by a kind of conventional investigator rather than a digital forensic specialist. And what we've realised over time is that we needed a solution to deliver that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Anthony. And I think one of the big challenges, you'll agree, is around that data management piece. So when the digital devices are imaged and that data comes in, how do we tag that data appropriately that's in line with the seriousness of the case? So if it's a murder case in the UK, for example, they've actually got laws and governance to say we've got to keep that data potentially for up to 100 years, which poses a big challenge around data storage. And at the moment, I think it's fair to say that, like most organisations, data's never kind of deleted and managed very well. So actually there's a big store of data behind here that needs to be categorised and managed as part of that. So yeah, thanks for that. So what we'll do now is we'll take those elements that Anthony's taken you through and we'll start to build out the solution that we put together as Telefonica Tech in the UK, and you'll see it come up. So it's a bit of a build slide, but it's I think it's worth doing it like that so we can get it all in clearly. But my clicker is not working.
Let's just while we're waiting for that, what I was just going to say is...
go on.
Sorry, yeah.
You go.
I was just going to say, just on the previous slide, so the vast majority of law enforcement's investigations in the digital forensics arena, unfortunately, hinge and pivot around online child sexual abuse material, which is obviously quite a horrific subject, but I think it's important to call out that law enforcement's time is significantly devoted to the pursuing of those offenders online that are distributing and kind of involved in online child sexual abuse. Obviously, as Will said, that comes with some vast challenges around huge amounts of data and also our legal requirements in the UK to store that data for up to 100 years, which is obviously is difficult for any vendor to commit to and promise that we will store your data for 100 years. So go on.
Yeah. Perfect, thank you. So what we start with here is, and this is the bit that usually gets forgotten and gets bolted on at the end, but it's actually the security piece. So from what Anthony was saying there around those child sexual images, just because you work in Leicestershire Police, force doesn't mean that you have access or should have access to that data, right? So the first thing we've got to do is secure the environment and control the access management to those assets and that data. So that's the first number one thing. And what we've actually done with this is we've taken the Telefonica Tech Next Defence Spain portfolio, first in the UK, first into UK policing, to wrap that umbrella around the digital forensics environment. So very specialist environment. It's also in there going to have things that could be false positives in a very standard environment. So, for example, they're looking at, as well as the stuff that ANSI's covered, things like cybercrime, ransomware. So to do that and investigate that, they've got to potentially unlock those payloads in their secure environment, understands what's happening to be able to decipher that. So obviously you don't want that getting out to the wider force network or beyond kind of thing. So we start with the security that we pushed on with first. So as Anthony touched on, lots of devices that we need to get data in. So for Leicestershire and all police forces, this could be out in police stations. It could be more and more in digital vans as well, where we're taking vans to site with equipment to do on-site forensics. So first thing we need to do is get all that data onto the digital forensics network, or the DFnet. So we do that by providing WAN services into Leicestershire Police. We work closely with the wider Telefonica Tech family with VMO2 to provide some of that connectivity as well. And then once we've got that into the environment, we need to get it onto, because there's a lot of data, we need to get it quickly onto really high performance storage, right? So high performance file storage that's going to be used for both storing and ingesting the data and processing the data as we work through the life cycle. So next stage is, like I say, start to process some of that data. We use very specific applications from the likes of magnet forensics that will look into those mobile phone images and look for that incriminating evidence. So look for that image or that text message or whatever that may be. So we're using a lot of compute power, a lot of high performance storage, and we're doing this on premises. And I think what's important to talk about here is that the Leicestershire went on a bit of a journey as they led into this, exploring hyperscale cloud, so Azure, AWS. But the challenge there was that there was a real unknown in terms of how that was going to perform, and ultimately with a big backlog of cases, actually how were they going to get that data into the system to start with. So we built a hybrid solution. So we've got on-prem elements and we've got public cloud elements. So as we look at the top here, we've got a review platform which enables, once that data has been automatically moved up into that platform, the officers in charge can then start to look at that data, look at thumbnails, look at emails, text messages, and start to build that case together. So we're doing that in public cloud, giving those users access 24/7 to that data. Once we start creating data, then we've got to protect it. So again, a big challenge with Leicestershire Police was there wasn't necessarily the replication, the backup, and all those kind of things in place that meant that data was secure and safe. So we've got to start backing that data up. And then as we move on, we come into this data management piece. So this first sort of loop here is all about the case, processing the case, getting a case to court. Once that decision's been made in terms of whether a conviction has been found, a criminal's been found guilty, then we need to start thinking about how we're going to manage that data. If that person in fact is innocent, should we have that data at all? Should we let that subside and go away because they may have a right to be forgotten or something similar? Or should we be restoring that data because they are a convicted criminal and therefore we've got to keep that data for 100 years, as we touched on?
Yeah. I was just going to add to this as well. Obviously, I'm a representative of Leicestershire Police. We're a customer of Telefonica Tech in the UK. I'm very pleased that obviously we've decided to partner with Telefonica Tech for the next 5 to 7 years. We really view Telefonica Tech as the key really for our success over the next 5 to 7 years in terms of unlocking that digital data and exploiting it and actually driving success to our digital investigations. Ultimately, I'm a public servant. I serve the public of Leicestershire, and what I've recognised in the journey of this project is that we can't do this on our own as policing. We don't have the resources, the knowledge, the technology, and the resources that can scale to the size that we need to deliver a solution such as this. So that's why we're really pleased to say that we're working with Telefonica Tech in the private sector. We've got here a really good relationship between public sector and private sector working hand in hand to deliver this digital forensic solution. And for us, the key things that we're going to be delivering to our investigators is, yes, we're going to build we already have built a rock solid foundation, which is the network, the storage, the compute, the public cloud. But actually, for our investigators, and I'm an investigator at heart, what I'm most excited about is in the next month, we're hoping to bring online our kind of customer facing being the investigators of Leicestershire Police, a new digital forensics case management system, a new digital forensics automation solution, which we're estimating from the various different proof of concepts that we've done over the duration of the project, that some of the turnaround times will be cut down from what is, I think from memory, over 40 days turnaround time for a device. We can turn that around in less than 2 hours with our sort of tests that we've done. So we're going to be seeing digital devices coming into our department, and fingers crossed, going out within the same day, basically, which will be a revolutionary step forward for us as a police force, and that will improve the level of service. And then the last thing that's mentioned at the top of that diagram is that we will be delivering a web-based review platform, essentially a web application in partnership with Telefonica Tech and a digital forensic software vendor called Magnet Forensics. We're going to be delivering essentially a web-based review platform where our investigators can review and consume what is technical stuff that comes out of these devices. So that's where they will understand what the criminal has been doing, who the criminal has been communicating with, all that data that is stored in a phone and a laptop and cloud data, digital devices, will be simplified and made accessible to our investigators, which myself and our chief officer team are most excited about. Is that's the thing that we really want our investigators to start using and consuming. But obviously we need the foundations and the network and all the IT stuff to make the solution work. The other thing as well, as I said, I've spent the last 5 years operating in the cybercrime world of policing, dealing with ransomware attacks and cyber attacks against businesses. So setting on this journey with Telefonica, I really wanted to make sure that we didn't just build essentially a new IT platform with some applications on it. I wanted to make sure that we also thought about our own cybersecurity. So that's why we've selected Telefonica's Next Defence cybersecurity, managed cybersecurity service, which is, it's got various different products within it, but obviously CrowdStrike is quite a big component of that. Yeah. So I think we're the first UK police force that I know of that's selected CrowdStrike in the UK to be deployed as part of a managed detection and response solution. And like you said, we were the first customer at the time to take Telefonica's Next Defence service that was launched in the UK. Obviously, it's more mature in the continent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Perfect, thanks. Yeah, and we put the green rubber stamp on there, so we're working and presenting with Anthony in Leicestershire today, but we're doing this within multiple UK police force, so this is where the idea of the blueprints come from. So we started the journey with Leicestershire 4 or 5 years ago, and actually what we've done is formulate this blueprint to say, okay, next police service, you don't need to go on that journey and spend all that time, 3-4 years, evaluating public cloud, what technologies work, what doesn't. We've got a blueprint ready for you to roll out, right? So save all that time, save all that money, all that effort, and use this blueprint. And the blueprint it's an a la carte menu, so you can take bits and pieces of it. Some forces will already have some of this, and some won't have any at all, so you can take whichever pieces you so desire, essentially. So that's what the green approved mark is there. We think it's approved anyway. So what does the future hold? I'll put all these up on the screen and maybe we can touch on a few of these as we go. And I know that you and me have already been around here and found some more futures of what it holds with quantum computing and drones that can be put out in the field somewhere. So but let's touch on some of these. So I think firstly for me, everyone talks about AI. Actually, we've not talked about it much here at this event, which is great, but it's still a thing. But I think for AI, it's all about data strategy and foundations, right? So there's no point, like we talked about, all that old data that's locked away, siloed, unknown exactly what that data contains. You can't just squirt AI at that. You've got to start to build a data strategy, or maybe even multiple data strategies, and start to then carve that up into useful subsets of data, and then start to use AI on top of that to get some value and add to that. Things like Copilot, I think.
I was going to say, with the AI, so in our solution that we've designed, in partnership with you, Will, at Telefonica, we're already deploying AI and machine-assisted technologies and machine learning in with our solution. As I mentioned earlier, there is a large proportion of our investigations that are relating to online child abuse. So obviously with that, there's obviously vast quantities of video data, vast quantities of photographic data as well that we need to essentially trawl through as investigators. So we're deploying things like NVIDIA Grid to do essentially help us as investigators bring forward that abuse material and make it more readily obvious to us as investigators that it's there. So rather than an investigator spending what might be several days looking at quite horrific material, we're able to condense that into a shorter period of time, which obviously is very important for us on the officer welfare front. We're also able to do some quite cool things with object recognition. So in investigations, if we've got vast quantities of CCTV footage and we want to perhaps look at 20 hours of CCTV footage and pick out the red car, well, rather than a human being having to sit there and look at 20 hours of footage and spot the red car, we're hoping later this year to do a mini proof of concept around some AI and some software that we're looking at as well to assist us with that as well. So we're doing a bit of AI at the moment, but I think we're really excited once we've got the foundations really cemented in for this solution.
Yeah.
We just want to keep growing on that AI and bringing AI into the solution as much as possible, as we've already made a fair chunk of investment with GPUs and NVIDIA Grid and all those sorts of things as well. And obviously we've got public cloud as well that allows us to do things on a bit of a responsive way. If we don't want to go out and buy essentially a load more GPUs and technology to help us do that thing for a short period of time, well, that's really where the hyperscale is for me, and public cloud allows us to respond. If we get a murder investigation and we happen to have loads of perhaps foreign language related evidence in there, that's where we can bring in services from the public cloud and bolt those into the investigation.
Yeah, and I think those sort of serious incidents, something that's happened at a festival or an event, God forbid, but like you say, you can crank up all that compute power, do what you need to do, and then ramp it back down again. I think you touched on a few of these. So language translation, wouldn't it be great if we could have use AI to do the translation in the interview room? So rather than wait for a human being to turn up to the interview, actually we can do the language translation there and then to speed up investigation, actually potentially reduce costs in that way as well. You've touched on CSAM, 5G, edge connectivity. I mean, we touch on DigiVans, so there's DFU vans that go out to site. If we can have these 5G connected with edge computing in the back of the van, again, at those major incidents, we can do a lot of that investigation there and then collect the evidence. So we're not waiting, we haven't got to worry about backlog. Obviously, a criminal's device is changing all the time, so the quicker we can get the data off that device, the more likely we are to catch them, right?
With regards to the 5G connectivity and that, super speed acceleration of, the mobile age, well, we're seeing in the mobile age at the moment, with the 5G connectivity, you've got to also remember that it's not just bad people's devices that we take off them. Obviously, if we seize a mobile phone or a computer off a suspected criminal, 9 times out of 10 they would be under arrest and they would be at the police station. So we can examine that mobile phone or that laptop in a laboratory. It's quite easy to do. It's quite comfortable. It's in a safe place to do. However, there's obviously the other side of the investigations, which are the victims. So if you imagine you're a victim to a crime and you don't want to be without your mobile phone for what traditionally was several days, it would be great if we could go out to a victim of a crime, and with 5G and edge computing, be able to extract that data in the victim's living room and be able to start processing it near instantaneously. That is almost there. The only thing for us is we as an organisation, we're just not ready yet. We're on that journey, and I think we'll be excited over the next year or so to explore that as a way that we can bring a better level of service to our victims of crime.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think just to round up these bits, so obviously some of the Microsoft platforms and the Power Apps, maybe being able to dashboard some of that information. How many crimes are we solving? Are we providing the service that we should be providing to the public, and actually take that transparency out to the public and publish it out in the region and say, hey, we're doing a good job here, right? That sort of thing. And then, applications like most public sector organisations, there's a lot of legacy there, and there's a continual kind of application modernisation. So we're going through some of that with Leicestershire and other police forces. They've taken on the Magnet portfolio, but there's a whole plethora of apps that we need to consider and think about. Anything else you want to touch on, or?
Yeah, the only thing that's kind of there in a few of the icons. For us, obviously, we all understand that the cloud is massive, and cloud data sources now are becoming even larger for us as investigators. And what we are finding is that there is now, in some cases, more data stored in the cloud than perhaps on the device in some cases. So for us, being able to acquire that data, with the latest, fastest connectivity, I mean, for us as a police force, a simple step forward for us that recently in the last few weeks is that we've kind of supersized our connectivity to the cloud and the internet. We've procured through Telefonica a 10 gigabit connectivity to allow us to go and essentially extract and download cloud data for our investigations. So simple things like that are just really, really important to have those solid foundations to enable us to do business. So yeah, cloud data is one that's just going to continue to grow and accelerate. And obviously mobile devices have already overtaken in our organisation over conventional laptops and Windows-based devices. So we're just going to see that grow year on year, I think, in my assessment, being able to respond to some of the storage that's on some of the devices. So if any of you ever hear from any of the mobile vendors, I'd fully expect you to be seeing sort of 2 terabyte devices at some point in the near future. We're already seeing a terabyte on many platforms. So obviously that creates us a challenge, because that means that it's now longer, and we need longer to extract those devices.
And criminals don't often have one mobile phone, right? They have 2, 3, however many. Even people in our personal lives have multiple phones, a work phone and a personal phone. Yeah. So if something happened here and you want to take evidence from all those separate devices, the headache is massive, right? Yeah. So the problem's only going to get bigger.
Constant challenge that we have as law enforcement. Mobile vendors have to balance consumers. I myself as a consumer, they have to balance the privacy and the security of devices, whilst also balancing, I suppose, in some degrees, our needs as well. And we're finding it constantly harder to get into digital devices, with encryption seen everywhere, device security. Just this week alone, with one of the iOS updates, that's made a significant challenge to us doing our, I suppose, investigations. But it's always that constant 1 step forward, 2 steps back. But eventually we get there. So,
and I think that's the partnership thing, right? So for us, it's not about what we've already done with Leicestershire. It's about what does the future hold. So in terms of just wrapping up, I think digital forensics is quite specific a topic, but if you are looking at a digital forensics transformation journey, then we do have the offer of a free workshop. So this was all about partnership. It started 4 or 5 years ago for us in Leicestershire Police. We want to go on that journey with every police force, multiple law enforcements globally, internationally. We think we've got some good IP, some good talent that can help kind of transform those environments quickly. Failing that, if you don't do digital forensics, it's a similar story for Telefonica Tech in the UK. We want to build strong partnerships and solve very complex business problems. And that's us. We'll wrap it up for today. I think that's all. Unless you've got anything to add, are you okay?
Yeah. I'd just say it's not also about policing. Digital forensics is also done by the private sector as well.
Yeah.
So many organisations have large corporate investigation teams, essentially insider threat teams. There's also a value for that for this solution. I think from my side, this blueprint would work very well in those sort of settings, as well as incident response teams as well. We've seen obviously a massive growth in cyber incident response providers. Some of the technologies that we're bringing in our solution would definitely be a help for people that don't necessarily work within the police sector and attack this solely from the digital forensics angle as well. So
absolutely. Perfect. Okay, I think that's it. That's our slot. So appreciate everyone listening. Appreciate your time. Thanks, Anthony, again.
Thank you, Will, as well. Right. And thank you for the partnership. All right.